Hey everyone, my name is Sumita Chakraborty and I'm here today for Carcanet's Meet the Author series. I am very, very excited to meet you in this way and to have the chance to do that. I'm a debut author and I'm from the States, as I'm sure you can tell, so I was really looking forward to getting the chance to meet a number of you in person in the UK, and I'm very, very bummed that COVID has taken that away from us, although it is a tiny violin problem in the scheme of things, so there is also that. In any case, I am very eager to get to know all of you and to tell you a little bit about myself, about what I'm reading these days, about Arrow, right here, and to hopefully connect with a few of you through this video. So me, you already know my name. I am currently living in Michigan, where I am the Helen Zell Visiting Professor in Poetry at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. I'm originally from Massachusetts, and I spent a long time in Atlanta, Georgia as well, when I was getting my PhD down there in literature with a certificate in women's gender and sexuality studies. I also was an editor for a very long time. I was on the editorial masthead of Agni magazine for 13 total years. I did pretty much every gig there, between being an intern who lugged up what was at the time physical boxes full of paper submissions, to being poetry editor eventually by the time I stepped away. And I'm sure that governs a lot of the way that I think and am drawn to writing and collecting poetry and curating poetry in ways that I probably haven't even fully parsed yet. Okay, so I was asked to give some recent books that really blew me away. That is hard to do in 2020 when there are so many phenomenal books coming out, all of which are consistently blowing me away in different directions. First, I would be remiss if I didn't give a hat tip to Helen Callcut's Somehow. It's a pamphlet that is out right now from Verve. It is incredible. Other recent books that I've loved, I have a little pile here, and this really is most recent books that I've loved, because if I listed every single book that I've recently read that blew me away, we would be here forever, and I don't think you want that. I think I'd wear out my welcome. But here are some that have been especially incredible to me. Eduardo Corral's Guillotine. I'm not sure if it's available over in the States, but get a friend to send you a copy. Similarly, Some Are Always Hungry by Ji Yin. Similarly, I'm not sure if this is available in the UK, but Make an American Friend. You will want one, if only for those two books. This, I do believe, is available in the UK. Sometimes I Never Suffered by Shane McCrae. You know, the thing I love about all three of these books is that they really tap into what I think is most powerful about poetry in general, which is that, as Audre Lorde said, poetry is a way of making ideas felt, right? She thought that perhaps there were no new ideas, but we do always need new ways to inhabit the ideas that we have, and ways to feel things that can really dramatically reshape our sense of those things themselves. And I think all three of these books do that in a truly gripping way, both with their autobiography of every individual poet, as well as broader narratives in both history and myth, and several other things besides, that made me feel as though I was a different person from when I began the book to when I ended the book. And there's nothing I love more than feeling like a set of poems has forced me to not be the me that I was when I first encountered them. So I couldn't recommend them more highly. In terms of my new collection, Arrow, I'll show you again. It's a debut, as I said, and it was basically 10 years in the making. I wrote and rewrote different versions of this over and over again. For me, as I recently wrote in a blog post actually for Carcanet, what really had to happen is I had to become the person who could write the book that I wanted to write. This book is about living in the aftermath of violence, and there are many kinds of violence that it touches on, but the autobiographical one that was most pivotally or immediately important to me was domestic violence, which I'm a survivor of. I wanted to not exactly write a book about domestic violence, but write a book about what it means to try to be a person who loves and feels joy and is invested in other people and in notions of family when all of those things were weaponized against me from the first breath I drew on this earth. So that's largely what this book is about. It's also about the death of my sister, which the book begins with. She died both expectedly and unexpectedly in 2014, and I say that because she was not ill and I was not at the time expecting her death, but I had spent my entire life expecting either her death or my mother's death or even my own. So in some ways, there were aspects of that surprising death that tapped into a profound lack of surprise and kind of grieving for what that meant, that I was a person who could be so unsurprised about an event like that. Again, there's more where that's coming from in the blog post and in the book itself. A favorite poem of mine within the book, that is tough. That's like saying it. No, it's even harder than saying like what your favorite of your children is. I guess I say that as someone who never wanted children, so there's that. But I think that after much deliberation, my favorite poem in the collection would probably have to be, with apologies to all of the other poems, the poem Dear Beloved. It is a long, about 12-page single stanza, which I'm sure makes you really excited to dig into that. It's an elegy for my sister, and the words Dear Beloved are the English language translation of her Sanskrit origin name, which was Priya. And the poem, again, much like the rest of the book, I didn't want to so much elegize her in some ways as I wanted to talk about what it feels like to occupy the, if you will, the epistemology of grief and of mourning, especially when it is such a complex grief. You know, not only was it both unexpected and expected, as I've already said, but my sister and I also had a difficult relationship and a difficult childhood. So being able to wrestle with those feelings in the aftermath of her death is what that poem is about. I want to do a shout out to the Verve Poetry Festival. Back when we used to be able to get on planes and go to things, they had me over there as the poet of the festival, and one of the readings they had me do was a reading just of Dear Beloved, and I didn't think I'd ever get that chance in my lifetime because it is a long poem. It took about 45 minutes to read all in one go, and the reception and the warmth and the enthusiasm that I had there made that possibly one of the most meaningful experiences of my life as a writer. So yes, after a great deal of reluctance and with many apologies to the other poems in the book, I would have to say my favorite poem in the book is probably Dear Beloved. And the last question is a favorite place to work, which feels kind of funny as an American still stuck inside most of the time. I'm so deeply jealous of all of you getting to start going out to places and things. Here, I'm still pretty much on peak early days Corona quarantine. So my favorite place to work is where I'm coming to you from live, apparently with printer paper still above me. I don't know why I got that in the shot. At the same time, you know, it's been frustrating, of course, to be stuck inside all the time, and especially to be in a nation that is not having quite an effective response to this pandemic. That is the understatement of the year. At the same time, so much of my early life and even adolescence and even into my 20s was rocked by a sense of instability and inability to really feel safe in the places where I lived and the places where I worked. So it's been kind of interesting to have this occasion also to reflect on being just so deeply fortunate to have a home in which I do feel secure and in which I do feel safe and comfortable and loved. Just me, the husband, and some cats. Like it's a strange and challenging way in which to feel a blessing, but it is a blessing. Okay, thank you so much for your time and for getting to know me. I wish that this could have been a conversation so I could get to know you as well, but hopefully there will be time to do that through our various social channels. Thank you so much. Take care.